Hello, dear friends. Ken Graves here with GodSword. We're going to dig into that 9th chapter of Zechariah in just a minute. But first, I got to show you this. It's a rare, what do you call it? A rare meteorological phenomenon. It's spring. It's the second day of spring. Now, the state of Maine is among the last to get the memo. What we have happening here right now is not merely a snow shower. How do I say? This is what you'd call a snowball shower. If I can catch one, I'll show you. They're big, giant clumps of snow falling. Giant clumps of snow. It's kind of like a massive, big cotton balls falling. I don't have a dark enough background to contrast, so you can see it. Maybe here. Again, not snowflakes. You see what's landing on me, and on the truck here are giant clumps of snow. But they're real light and real fluffy. And anyway, it's kind of a rare thing. But when this kind of dense snow is in the air, sound is sort of absorbed by it. That's a really cool thing. You don't hear long distance sound. It makes the air quiet when there's no wind blowing. Well, there's a fine view of the outhouse, in case you wanted one. Seagulls passing. Anyway, it doesn't take long in this kind of snow to get completely covered. Well, just had to share that with you. Hopefully I didn't get water on the lens. Back in the build, back in the house. We'll see if we can find a semi-comfortable spot to engage in our study today. Here, perhaps. Here I can, excuse me, I'm going to grab my Bible. Bought a wood stove today. Sorry about that. That was me knocking the snow off and the microphone with it. Sorry. There now. It's a good day. I've been in and out of Lowe's for weeks looking for them to drop the price on a wood stove they had on display. Airtight. Oh, there we go. And today they did. Cat Day was down 50%, and I jumped on it. 50% off of the wintertime price. Well, that's for me. So we're coming on installing that tomorrow, perhaps. But today, Zechariah, the 9th chapter. Zechariah chapter 9. Profound prophecy here. And here in Zechariah chapter 9, there really is the contrast between two kings. One a pagan conqueror. Most likely, Alexander the Great is the one who fulfilled the prophecy here from the first portion of chapter 9. And then there is the king of all kings, our king, Christ. So chapter 9, verse 1, the oracle of the word of Yahweh is against the land of Hadrach. The land of Hadrach with Damascus as its resting place for the eyes of men especially. All the tribes of Israel are toward Yahweh. And Hamath also, which borders on it, Tyre and Sidon, because they are very wise. So Tyre built herself a tight fortification and tied up silver like dust and fine gold like the mire of the streets. The Lord will dispossess her, and strike her wealth down to the sea, and she will be consumed with fire. Ashkelon will see it and be afraid. Gaza too will writhe in great pain. Also Ekron, for her hope has been put to shame. Moreover, the king will perish from Gaza, and Ashkelon will not be inhabited. And those of illegitimate birth will inhabit Ashdod, so illegitimate birth, or mixed people, not. This is, again, Philistine territory. This particular region that includes the city of Tyre and all of this being prophesied here, and all of it being conquered, did have its ultimate fulfillment in the rise of the Greek Empire under Alexander the Great. The Assyrians and other empires had made their attempt. As I recall, even the Babylonians made an attempt to take the city of Tyre. None of them succeeded. But Alexander, he took it in a very short time, an amazing act of engineering, actually building a causeway to what Alexander did, what the Greeks did under Alexander's leadership was profound, but it was also prophesied. It was foreseen by God. It was in God has his hand in the affairs of man. I'm trying not to dig in too deep or spend too long here. So moving southward to the region of the Philistines, the prophecy against Ashdod and Ashkelon. You know what's really amazing is when you visit the region today, there's still an Ashdod, there's still Ashkelon. They're near Gaza, and they're still in Gaza, as you well know, for it's in your headlines, right? But there are no Philistines. Those of illegitimate birth, again, verse 6, will inhabit Ashdod, and I will cut off the pride of the Philistines, and I will remove their blood from their mouth, and their detestable things from between their teeth. Unlike the covenant people who were commanded to treat blood with reverence, is one of the offenses, one of the traits of pagan Philistines was the blood in their mouths and detestable things, the unclean things between their teeth. Then they will be a remnant. And then they also will be a remnant for our God. They'll be like a clan in Judah, and Ekron like a Jebusite. Like a clan in Judah. It was the case that when Joshua conquered the Promised Land, the Jebusites remained for a long time in the city of Jebus, as Jerusalem was once known, until the days of David. David conquered Jebus and claimed that town as which had been formerly known as Salem, or Salem, and he made it Jerusalem. But he allowed Jebusites to live. Some of them were very significant in those who surrendered to David. And so here the prophecy is that it would be so for some of the Philistines. They'd be like a remnant for our God, and be like a clan in Judah, and Ekron like a Jebusite. But I will camp around my house because of an army, because of him who passes by and returns. That, again, ultimately is a profound, accurate, prophetic description of what Alexander the Great did. He passes by and returns, and no taskmaster will pass over them anymore. For now I have seen with my eyes. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. This is the coolest part. So this portion that was fulfilled by the coming of Alexander the Great, the conquest of the Greek Empire over the Medo-Persian Empire, coming as they did, and as Alexander the Great did, to Israel, and ultimately even to Jerusalem, God gave the people of Israel favor with that Greek king and that conqueror. Josephus, the historian, writes about it. They were given, great favor. God dealt with his heart. It would seem the night before he met the high priest and the multitude of this conquered people, he saw them in a dream. And that affected him, as well as they taking the time to show him the prophecies in Daniel about a succession of empires and the dreams and visions that God gave the prophet Daniel that were being fulfilled by the rise of Alexander the Great, by the rise of this Greek Empire. And this allowed the Jews to know a degree of favor in the days of Alexander the Great, and he allowed them to live under their laws. They asked for that sort of permission just to be able to live according to the law of God, and they were granted that. But then it changes in verse 9 to a completely different subject. Now, I want you to look at this. This is the kind of thing that God does. God shows God, eternal God. He shows the creator of time, shows so very little regard for time. It's just not a big thing to him when he says things and then throws a comma. There are a number of places, like in the prophecy of Joel, the one that Joel chapter 2, the one that the Apostle Peter said was being fulfilled in the days of Pentecost. In the day of Pentecost, when the Spirit of God was poured out upon the church, a portion of Joel's prophecy was being fulfilled, but then there's a comma. And Peter said, this is what was written, this is that which was written by the prophet Joel. And he quotes a portion, but he stops at a comma. On the other side of that comma is the prophecy of blood and fire and vapor of smoke and the moon turned to blood. All of this intensity is on the other side of a comma. That comma, it turns out, represents at least 20 centuries of church history. In other words, the church was born the day of Pentecost, and a portion of Joel's prophecy was fulfilled, but the other portion will be fulfilled in the tribulation. So a comma in a sentence for God can represent 2,000 years. And it's that way here, verse 9, he speaks of the humble coming of Messiah, the first time to Jerusalem. On a donkey's colt he comes in meekness. And then the very next verse, he speaks of his reign, his triumphal reign. Let's look at this, verse 9. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion, make a loud shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. He is righteous and endowed with salvation, lowly and mounted on a donkey, even on a colt, the foal of a pack animal. I love that prophecy. The writers of Scripture, like Matthew, are sure to tell us just as it was written. The Lord rode into Jerusalem in meekness. He came humbly. He came as a king who comes in peace. Not like Alexander the Great, who comes on a white, majestic steed, and a big, great parade of all that he has conquered, all of the captives conquered by him. Christ comes in a very humble way, like a king who comes in peace, in meekness. I am finding it challenging to be comfortable on the bar of the scaffolding, but let me continue. The very next verse says in verse 10, I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim, and the horse from Jerusalem, and the bow of war will be cut off, and he will speak peace to the nations, and his reign will be from sea to sea, and from the river to the ends of the earth, from the river, no doubt the Jordan, but even if it were the Euphrates, it doesn't matter, from there to the end of the earth, from sea to sea, a vast reign of Messiah. Well, it didn't happen, and it would not happen. Even the 12 were asking, will you at this time restore the kingdom to Israel? At the Lord's departure, at his ascension. So they didn't know there would be all of these centuries in between verse 9 and verse 10. But Yahweh does. He knew. Verse 11, as for you also, because of the blood of your covenant, I have set your prisoners free from the waterless pit. Return to the stronghold, O prisoners who have the hope. This very day I am declaring that I will return double to you, for I will bend Judah as my bow. Messiah speaking, Yahweh speaks through Messiah. I will fill the bow with Ephraim, and I will rouse up your sons, O Zion, against your sons, O Greece, and I will make you like a mighty man's sword. Now, there's some significant history that happened in the intertestamental period during the Greek Empire. You know, Alexander was ultimately replaced, and one of his successors, one Antiochus Epiphanes, was an absolute precursor to the Antichrist, a wicked, evil, blasphemous man who comes and desecrates the temple. And the rise of Judah Maccabee and his sons, the Maccabees, and a revolt that they overcome the Greeks. They cleanse the temple. The whole feast of Hanukkah, the Feast of Lights, is all originating from that particular period of time. And here it is referenced. So, God, he just doesn't regard time the way we do. And he doesn't worry about chronological order either, because he speaks of the first coming of Messiah. He speaks of Messiah's reign in verse 10, and then returns back to the more immediate future and prophecy that will be fulfilled during the Greek Empire, before the Roman Empire ever rises. And it's during the Roman Empire that verse 9 is fulfilled. You see my point. Verse 14, and Yahweh will appear over them, and his arrow will go forth like lightning. And Lord Yahweh will blow the trumpet and will go in the storm winds of the south. Yahweh of hosts will defend them, and they will consume and trample on the stones of a sling. And they will drink and roar as with wine, and they will be filled like a sacrificial bowl, drenched like the corners of the altar. And Yahweh their God will save them in that day as the flock of his people, for they are as the stones of a crown, sparkling in his hand. Sparkling in his land. For what goodness and what beauty will be theirs. Grain will make the choice men flourish, and new wine the virgins. And so there's a prophecy here that I maintain looks beyond the judgment of God in the days of the tribulation to, again, the millennial reign of Christ. And this goodness and this beauty, this bounty. Grain will make the choice men flourish, and new wine the virgins. It is a beautiful set of prophecies. Now, I've already gone 20 minutes. My point from the 9th chapter of Zechariah is that our Creator transcends time space and matter. He's outside of it all. He is before it all. It is just another created thing to him. He works with this, being outside of time. He uses his knowledge of what is to us who are in time, the future. And he validates his message and he validates his messengers by allowing them to have glimpses into the future. What an amazing thing that the scope of the prophets can zoom way out, zoom back in, back out, back in a little, and continue to see accurately and prophesy accurately. Praise to his name. And as your study for today, we'll continue in for me, it'll be on Monday, into chapter 10. But before that, the Lord's Day. Anyway, I don't know how you're watching, in what order you're watching all of these, but I'm grateful that you would take in the Word. I think that's what matters, right? It's the Word. Just know the book. If you have questions or comments, please send them by email to ccbangor.org, and I am grateful for you. Grace and peace to you, and thanks for taking this journey with me. All right? Back to work. Back out into the snowball storm. See you later.